It was supposed to be a night of excitement under the stadium lights. The biggest football game of the year in Scottsville, Kentucky. Gabby Dwan, just 7 years old, had come to the school field with her parents to watch her older brother play. The atmosphere was buzzing. Locals filled the bleachers, and visiting fans had poured in from another county to support their team. But by the end of the night, celebration turned to chaos. Gabby had vanished. Born on December 26th in the tight-knit town of Scottsville, population just over 4,000, Gabby was part of a close community where nearly everyone knew each other, or at least someone from every family. In a town where farming was the mainstay and entertainment options were few, school sports were everything. Football games weren't just games. They were social events, community gatherings, a point of pride. Gabby came from a family of 5. Her oldest brother played on the football team, and Gabby, lively and outgoing, had joined the cheer squad. When the big game rolled around in November 2015, the Dwan family, like most of Scottsville, was caught up in the excitement. Initially, her parents weren't planning to bring her along. Gabby was supposed to stay home with her younger brother and a relative, but she was persistent. Eventually, her parents gave in, and the whole family headed to the field on the evening of November 14th. As soon as they arrived, Gabby spotted her friends and asked if she could go play with them. Her mother agreed, warning her to stay close and remain on school grounds. Gabby ran off, laughing, disappearing into the crowd of children, the last time her parents would see her that night. No one could have imagined that what started as an ordinary game would unravel into a mystery that would shake their entire town. Gabby Dwan spent the first part of the evening weaving in and out of the crowd, occasionally running back to her mom in the bleachers before darting off again to play. At one point, she stopped by the announcer's booth where her dad was stationed and asked for money to buy snacks. He handed her some cash, and she disappeared once more into the bustling scene. Not long after, a group of young girls approached Gabby's mother. She looked at them and instantly sensed something was wrong. Gabby wasn't with them. The girls, clearly anxious, asked if she'd seen Gabby. The mother said she hadn't for a while. Alarmed, she asked what was going on. The girls explained they had been playing hide and seek. Gabby was it and was supposed to find them. They had hidden in the restroom, waited and waited, but Gabby never came. At first, they thought they had simply outlasted her. But when they stepped out to find her, she was gone. They called her name, retraced their steps, checked every spot they'd played in earlier, but it was like she had vanished without a trace. Assuming Gabby might have gone to her mom, the girls hurried to the bleachers. But when they arrived and realized she hadn't, panic set in. Her mother rushed to the announcer's booth and told her husband that Gabby was missing. He immediately began searching the area surrounding the stadium. The mother, meanwhile, headed toward the concession stand, the last place she knew Gabby had wanted to go. Along the way, they ran into some friends and quickly explained what was happening. Without hesitation, those friends joined the frantic search. They scoured the grounds, every path, corner, and field. Nothing. Desperate, they returned to the announcer's booth and made an announcement over the loudspeakers, praying Gabby would hear it and come running. But there was no response. By then, halftime had begun, and spectators were filing back into their seats. The Dwans began asking around, describing Gabby to everyone they passed. A few others joined the effort. The search expanded beyond the stadium. They asked the staff to turn on the lights near the baseball field, which backed into a small forest. The adults entered the wooded area with flashlights, calling Gabby's name. but the woods were silent. It had now been about 20 minutes since anyone had seen Gabby. With fear mounting by the second, her parents made the decision no one ever wants to make. They called the police. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us and helps us grow. A huge thank you to everyone who's been watching. Officers arrived at the school within minutes. They listened carefully to Gabby's parents and her friends as they recounted what had happened, then immediately launched a search. For the small-town police force, this was unfamiliar territory. Child disappearances were virtually unheard of in Scottsville, but the officers knew they had to prepare for the worst. Gabby may have been abducted, or worse. That led to a chilling realization. If someone had taken Gabby, the person responsible might still be at the stadium, blending in with the crowd, watching the game. And with the final whistle moments away, time was slipping fast. If they didn't act quickly, the suspect could vanish into the night along with everyone else. The police made a critical decision: halt the game and initiate a full lockdown. No one would be allowed to leave the stadium. Officers quietly stationed themselves at every exit, scanning the crowd, preventing anyone from slipping out. They kept the reason under wraps. If people found out a 7-year-old girl might have been kidnapped, panic could erupt and ruin any chance of identifying the suspect. While local officers secured the perimeter, the state police arrived and joined the ground search. Their team moved toward the baseball field and into the woods nearby. Not far into the trees, they reached a narrow creek, and that's where they made the heartbreaking discovery. A small body lay motionless in the water. It was Gabby. They called for an ambulance to transport her to the medical examiner, but even at first glance, the signs were clear. Bruising around the neck pointed to asphyxiation. Her clothing was partially missing, a disturbing detail that led investigators to suspect she had been sexually assaulted before she was killed. Back at the field, Gabby's mother spotted the ambulance parked near the woods. Hope surged. Maybe they had found her daughter alive and were taking her to the hospital. She rushed toward it, but police intercepted her. They couldn't let her see what they had just seen. No parent should. Now, the case had turned from a search into a homicide investigation. Believing the killer was likely still among the crowd, police relocated everyone from the stadium to the school gym. It was time to act fast, before their only suspect slipped through the cracks. Detectives sat down with Gabby's parents and delivered the devastating news. Their daughter had likely been murdered. They asked the couple if anyone came to mind. A suspicious figure, a past threat, anything unusual. But the parents were adamant. They had no enemies, no suspicions, no idea who could have done something so horrific. Next, investigators turned to Gabby's friends. Had anyone been watching them, following them? Did anything feel off that evening? The girls tried to remember but shook their heads. Nothing stood out. In a last attempt, the officers brought the children into the school gym and asked them to scan the crowd. Maybe a face would jog a memory. But again, nothing. Still, the lead detective had a gut feeling. He believed the girls may have seen something, perhaps even the killer, but either fear or their young age was clouding their perception. He gently kept pressing them, encouraging them to walk through the night again, moment by moment. And finally, something surfaced. One of the girls recalled seeing a man standing near the restroom door while they were hiding inside. She couldn't remember his face or build, only that he wore a denim jacket. It was a small detail, but enough to go on. Investigators asked the ticket booth cashier if he had seen anyone matching that description. The man did remember someone, a guy with a denim jacket slung over his arm. He added that the man seemed odd, possibly drunk, but no one could put a name to the face. The police began a systematic sweep, interviewing every person who'd attended the game. Word quickly spread through the gym about the murder. The tension thickened. Parents clutched their children tightly. The idea that the killer might be in the same room sent chills through everyone. But despite the fear, people cooperated. They answered every question. Investigators then cross-checked every male in the gym against the sex offender registry, but came up empty. Officers were also dispatched to the homes of known offenders in the area, but all had verified alibis and none had been anywhere near the school that night. The trail was cold, but they weren't giving up. As officers continued their interviews at the school, a new lead began to emerge. Multiple people mentioned seeing a man named Timothy Madden near the women's restroom during the game. He wasn't a stranger, a local resident well known in the community. But something about him that night raised red flags. Witnesses said he was acting oddly, out of place, and importantly, he matched the earlier description, a man in a denim jacket. One witness, a distant relative of Timothy, added another layer. He noted that Timothy's son had been playing on the field that evening. Yet Timothy, who was normally an enthusiastic supporter of his son's sports, seemed distracted, detached, almost dazed. More people came forward, echoing similar observations. Timothy's behavior just didn't sit right with them. That was enough for investigators to pursue him directly. With the night dragging on and the majority of people being released from the school, detectives decided to pay him a visit. But first, they consulted the local sheriff. The sheriff had known Timothy nearly his entire life and found it hard to believe he could be involved in anything like this. Timothy had no serious criminal record, just a few traffic violations, and had never raised suspicion in the past. He lived with his wife and 5 children. Still, the police needed answers. They went to his house. When they knocked, Timothy answered the door. Officers asked if he knew why they were there. He said he'd heard about the murder, but denied any involvement. That's when detectives decided to try a strategic move, a bluff. They told him there were several videos from witnesses showing him speaking to Gabby shortly before her death. There were no such videos. The claim was meant to test his reaction. At first, Timothy hesitated and claimed he didn't know anything, but almost immediately, he changed his story. He admitted that he had spoken to Gabby that evening. According to him, he had stepped outside to smoke when a group of girls ran past. Moments later, Gabby came up and asked if he'd seen them. She was playing hide and seek and trying to find her friends. Timothy said he pointed her in their direction, and she ran off. It was the first real admission linking him to Gabby that night, and detectives took note. Detectives were immediately suspicious of how quickly Timothy Madden had changed his story. Just minutes earlier, he'd denied any contact with Gabby. Now he was placing himself in direct interaction with her, moments before she vanished. According to his account, he was the last known person to speak with her, and at that time, no one else had been outside the stadium. That meant he had both the opportunity and a clear window to commit the crime. They pushed further. One detective asked, hypothetically, how he would explain it if his DNA was found on Gabby's body. Timothy didn't flinch. He simply replied, "No." No explanation. With that, officers asked him to voluntarily submit a DNA sample and hand over the clothes he'd worn that night. He agreed. But when they received the clothing, red flags went up immediately. There were what appeared to be stains on multiple items: his pants, denim jacket, even his underwear. Some of them resembled blood. When asked to explain, Timothy dismissed it. He insisted the stains were dirt and accused the detectives of being crazy. The officers weren't buying it, but they had to wait. Until the DNA results came back, there was no solid evidence to arrest him. Meanwhile, the crime lab prioritized the case, but even so, processing took several days. As the forensic analysis was underway, the pathologist concluded the autopsy. Gabby had died from manual strangulation. She had also been sexually assaulted. A biological sample from the attacker was recovered and sent to the lab for comparison. Then, the day after the murder, an unexpected twist. Police received an anonymous letter. The sender described a suspicious man spotted at the game. More importantly, they included the make, model, and license plate of the man's car. Investigators quickly traced the vehicle to a student who lived about 30 minutes from Scottsville. They tracked him down and brought him in for questioning. But the young man seemed genuinely shocked. He said he hadn't been at the game, hadn't even heard about the murder. He told them he'd been at work that night, and the police were able to confirm his alibi without question. He was cleared. But the letter? It remained a mystery. Whether it was an attempt to frame someone or a cruel joke, one thing was clear. The tip was false, and the student had nothing to do with Gabby's murder. Not long after, investigators received another lead, this time involving a local 16-year-old boy. Several people had noticed his behavior and found it suspicious. He told some that he had attended the football game, but told others he hadn't. He also mentioned seeing girls playing hide-and-seek that night. Detectives soon uncovered a key detail. The teenager was Timothy Madden's son. But that wasn't the most startling revelation. Just 2 weeks before the murder, the boy had reportedly gotten into a violent argument with his father, threatening him with a knife to his throat. With this new information, police attempted to question the teen. But because he was a minor, they needed a parent present. His mother refused to cooperate and declined to allow a DNA sample. With that, the investigation hit a dead end, at least for now. Back in Scottsville, a town where secrets never stayed quiet for long, rumors were already spreading. Word got out that the Madden family was under scrutiny in connection with Gabby's murder. Theories circulated rapidly. Some believed one of Madden's older sons, particularly the troubled ones, might be involved. Others suspected Timothy himself, or speculated he was covering for his children. Gabby's parents eventually heard the rumors and were stunned. Gabby's father had known Timothy since they were in 3rd grade. Their families were close. Their sons played on the same football team. Their daughters cheered together. That night, they had even sat near each other at the game. The idea that someone from within their trusted circle could be involved in their daughter's murder was unthinkable. Then, another turn. Timothy Madden's eldest son, 20 years old, began harassing local law enforcement online. Using profanity and threats, he demanded that police stop targeting his family. Officers took the threats seriously. He was arrested shortly after, and that's when they made another discovery. There was an active warrant for his arrest in another town. He was wanted for allegedly assaulting a minor girl. During questioning, he insisted he was angry, not guilty. The accusations against his family had pushed him over the edge. He denied any involvement in Gabby's murder, claiming he'd been at his cousin's house in a nearby town the night of the crime. He agreed to provide a DNA sample, which was sent to the lab for comparison. The investigation was intensifying, and the Madden family was now at the center of it. On November 20th, 6 days after Gabby's murder, the town gathered to grieve. Her funeral drew hundreds, not just from Scottsville, but from neighboring communities as well. Donations poured in to help her parents cover the cost of the service. The crowd, the flowers, the silence. It was a heartbreaking farewell to a little girl whose life had been stolen far too soon. That same day, the lab finished processing the DNA evidence. The results were conclusive. The semen recovered from Gabby's body matched Timothy Madden. The blood found on his clothes, including his pants, jacket, and underwear, was Gabby's. Armed with this damning evidence, detectives made their move. While mourners were still gathered at the funeral, investigators quietly pulled Gabby's parents aside. Alone, they told them they had identified her killer. At that same moment, officers were at Timothy Madden's home. He was taken into custody without incident. As he was escorted from the police station, reporters crowded in. Timothy shouted to the cameras that he was innocent. Later, he offered a new explanation for the blood on his clothing, claiming he had scratched himself on a fence. It was a sharp contradiction from his first story, where he insisted the stains were just dirt. With the DNA evidence in hand, prosecutors prepared their case. They announced they would seek the death penalty. In the lead-up to trial, Timothy's defense attorney pushed back hard. He claimed his client was innocent and suggested that the origins of the evidence were questionable. He argued that during the time of the murder, Timothy had been at the stadium filming the football game, a statement that conflicted with Timothy's own admission to police that he had spoken with Gabby around that time. The defense also highlighted that Gabby's body had been found in a creek, yet Timothy's clothes were dry when he returned to the stadium. His mother, who lived with him, testified that he came home wearing clean clothes and appeared completely normal. But the prosecution countered all of it with a single, irrefutable fact. Timothy Madden's DNA was on the victim's body. His semen was found during the autopsy. No theory, no alibi, no defense could explain that away. For prosecutors, it was the ultimate proof, and the case against him was airtight. According to investigators, parts of Timothy Madden's account may have been true. He likely did step outside the stadium during the game and encountered Gabby, who was searching for her friends. Gabby knew Timothy. He was the father of one of her cheerleading teammates, so there would have been no reason for her to fear him. It's possible she simply asked if he'd seen the other girls. That may have been the moment he saw his chance. He could have told her they had run into the woods behind the baseball field and offered to show her the way. Once they were far enough, a few hundred yards from the school, he may have carried out the assault and murder, then returned to the game as if nothing had happened. For Gabby's grieving family, justice couldn't come fast enough. But the wheels of the legal system moved slowly. Years passed. Bureaucratic delays pushed the trial further and further out of reach. In 2019, 4 years after Gabby's murder, the prosecution and defense began discussing a possible plea deal. Prosecutors agreed to drop the death penalty in exchange for a guilty plea and a life sentence. Gabby's parents accepted. The endless wait, the looming prospect of sitting through a prolonged trial, and the emotional toll of reliving their daughter's murder were too much to bear. Timothy Madden, who had long insisted he was innocent, eventually changed his plea and confessed. But the deal didn't require him to disclose what exactly he had done to Gabby. He only needed to admit guilt. This part devastated Gabby's family. They wanted answers, not just a conviction, but the truth. At the sentencing hearing, tensions boiled over. Gabby's father shouted at Madden, while members of Madden's family yelled back. The judge was forced to call a recess and separate both sides. In the end, Timothy Madden was sentenced to life in prison and transferred to a maximum security facility. But the story didn't end there. In 2016, a year after Gabby's murder, an unexpected piece of information surfaced. A teenage boy from a neighboring state watched a news segment about the case and recognized Timothy Madden. Years earlier, he and a friend had been walking near a mall when a man approached them, offering a ride. The boys felt something was off and ran. A relative reported the incident to police, but no arrest was made. The boy was convinced the man from that encounter was Madden, but with no physical evidence and no way to verify the identification, the case went nowhere. Still, if true, it offered a chilling insight into Timothy Madden's past, a possible pattern of predatory behavior. If he had attempted to lure children before, then perhaps that night near the stadium wasn't an impulsive act, but the moment he finally succeeded in acting out a dark and deeply rooted desire. Share your thoughts on this story in the comment section. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.